Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig.
And I'm Matt.
And we are now going to dive into the charge and fight phase of Warhammer 40k 10th edition. These two kind of go hand in hand, so we're going to cover it. Might be a longer video, and we're going to break it down to be nice and easy for you guys to learn. If this is your first time seeing this series, be sure to check the playlist that this is a part of, and go to the beginning, watch it from the start. That way you're not jumping part way through, and you can follow our flow of how we are teaching Warhammer 40k 10th edition. Thank you to our members, subscribers, and now let's dive into that video. You have seen our videos on command phase, moving, shooting. Now for the fun part, in my opinion, we are going to get into the charge phase. And as per other videos, we are changing up the terrain and the scenery for you guys. So for this, we are having the Tyranids versus the Adeptus Mechanicus in a confrontation here in the city. And our test subjects will be these Tyranid Gene Stealers versus the Adeptus Mechanicus Skitarii Vanguard, as well as Rust Stalkers, maybe another Tyranid buddy you guys can point out or find. So let's go through the charge process. First off, you have to select eligible units one at a time to declare their charges. In this case, we have selected our Tyranid Gene Stealers. Eligible targets must be ones that are within 12 inches. So in this case, we do have 2 units that are well within 12 inches of them. We also have to have that unit not have advanced or fallen back, or they cannot already be in engagement range of an enemy unit. So these Gene Stealers, you can take our word for it. They did not advance, they did not fall back, and you can clearly see they are not within engagement range of an enemy. So therefore, these Tyranid Gene Stealers are ready to charge and follow all the necessary requirements. Now that we have determined that the Gene Stealers are eligible to charge, we now actually have to get them through the charge. So first, you must choose your enemy target. In this case, we are going to declare the Skitarii Vanguard. We must measure their distance. We can see that we need a 5-inch charge to get them within an inch, which allow them to be within engagement range. So in order to actually make the charge, we must roll 2d6, and we roll a 6. Now we saw we needed a 5-inch charge, so 6 is enough distance to get them into the enemy unit. I only rolled a 3. Then the Gene Stealers did not roll enough distance to make it into the Vanguard, and the charge simply fails, and the Tyranid Gene Stealers can no longer do anything for this charge phase. So now we have to move our Gene Stealers. We have seen that they have made their charge, so each model is moved up to the distance they have charged. So we rolled a 7, so each individual Gene Stealer will move 7 inches. They must end closer to the enemy unit than they originally started. So in most of your cases, that is just to be going straight at them. Each model must end in base-to-base contact with a model in the target unit if possible. So these guys, you can see 7 inches for these first 3 Gene Stealers, or even the 4. They were able to get base-to-base, so they must do that. This last Gene Stealer here, he can't get within base-to-base, but he's still in unit coherency, so he follows along with the rest of them, just as a unit would. You can pick the order of which way you wanted to move these models. Because friendly units and models can move over each other, it doesn't really matter in a basic sense which ones you do, but you can go with whichever order you want to get distance. Another method of charging is called the multi-assault. So we can see with the Gene Stealers here, there are 2 potential targets in front of them. They have the Skitarii Vanguard and the Skitarii Rust Stalkers. The Skitarii Vanguard are 4 inches away, and the Skitarii Rust Stalkers are 5 inches away. Now, a multi-assault works is you can declare both targets, and in doing so, you have to be able to make it to both targets in order to charge. You can't declare against both and only make it to one. So in this case, if I were to roll only a 4, I would fail to the Rust Stalkers, and therefore the charge as a whole would fail. You can't just go towards one target. So let's just see an example here. We do roll a 6. That is enough. It is important to note that when you pile in with your charge here, you do have to make sure you do tag both units. So in this case, he could go here, and this one could go here. And then the same thing, they would follow suit. Must try to end in base combat if possible. Next, we're going to talk about units that can fly in the charge phase. Similar to the movement phase, flying units do have their benefits when it comes to charging. And in this case, we're going to show that flying units can charge over enemy models. So our Tyranid gargoyles here, which are basically flying termagants, are going to declare a charge against the Skitarii Vanguard here. And in doing so, they will be flying over the Rust Stalkers and tagging Vanguard there. So we'll have to roll our dice. It is important to note as well, because we are not multi-assaulting, we cannot be within an inch of these Rust Stalkers for any reason. So if we don't roll far enough of a charge, the charge will count as fail. So let's see if we do it. We need a big charge here. A 3 definitely won't do it, so those gargoyles are stuck sitting there in the open. And finally, with flying units, we have to talk about flying up into a building. Now, it's important to remember that engagement range is 1 inch horizontally, but is also 5 inches vertically. So in order for these gargoyles to want to get into combat up here, 5 inches vertical, as you guys can see, would technically be on this bottom floor right here. So our charge path, similar to moving, is going to be at a diagonal like this. So Matt and I have measured up, and it looks like we need about an 8-inch charge to get this gargoyle to right here to be within 5 inches vertically of the hiding Vanguard in the top. So I'll roll it right here on the terrain. And we got an 8. So that is what we need. So the gargoyles would be able to get to fly up here and be eligible to fight in the fight phase.
Continuing with our initial Gene Stealer example, the fight phase is broken up into 2 parts. There's the fights first and the fights normal steps. You begin with the fights first step. All eligible units with a fights first rule attack in this step. So if both players have units that are eligible to select with a fights first rule, then the inactive player would pick first. So currently the Tyranids are active, so if the AdMech had any fights first units, they would get to select the first unit to fight. From there, players alternate picking units until all fights first units have activated. If one player runs out of fights first, then the remaining player would just do the rest of theirs in whichever order they choose. In this case, the Gene Stealers have charged, so as shown previously, they have the charge bonus, so they will have fights first. If instead they had not charged this turn and this were an ongoing combat, then they would both be in the fights normal step. The fights normal step occurs after the fights first step, and as with the fights first step, the inactive player would select the first unit to fight. So again, that would be the Adeptus Mechanicus player in this example. Activating units. Any unit that made a charge move or is currently in engagement range of an enemy unit are eligible to activate. When a unit activates, it is able to make a pile-in move. It will then make its attacks, and then after it has made its attacks, it might be eligible to make a consolidation move. So we are going to jump into activating these Gene Stealers. So first, you pile in. So any model in the Gene Stealer unit that is not in base contact with an enemy model can make a pile-in move. So you can see that we just have the one Gene Stealer there that is currently eligible to pile in. So the model may move up to 3 inches, and it must end its move closer to the closest enemy unit and in engagement range of an enemy unit. And if possible, the unit or the model must end in base contact with the enemy unit. So you can see here it can't get its base in, so it'll just pile in as far as it can. Once you've piled in, you can then make your attacks. So all eligible models make their attacks. Models in engagement range of an enemy unit are eligible to attack, so that is 1 inch of any enemy models. Also, models in base-to-base contact with a friendly unit that is in base-to-base contact of an enemy unit are eligible to attack. So this is a way to get you a second row of fighting that might be outside of normal engagement range. So you can see with this handy little tool here, we have 1 inch on this side, and all 5 of our Gene Stealers are in engagement range. So each model will pick one melee weapon it's equipped with. Gene Stealers only have the one option, as you can see on the screen here. Each model can split their attacks between targetable enemies, although in this situation there's only one unit to target. Attacks are made using the same sequence as the shooting phase, which we'll demonstrate here a bit more quickly than in the shooting phase video. If you haven't seen that and want the full breakdown, go there for a little more in-depth.
So we will go with these Tyranid Gene Stealers. We will reference their data card and we can see that their weapon skill is 2+ and they have 4 attacks apiece. So I have 20 dice in my hand and we're gonna roll and we're looking for 2s or better to see if we hit. So actually we only rolled 1-1 in that whole time. We did have a couple critical hits, however for Gene Stealers these do not matter. Just like in the shooting phase, same damage sequence, we will compare the strength of these models, of these Gene Stealers, to the toughness of our Adeptus Mechanicus units here. So Gene Stealers on the data sheet, they are strength 4, and we can look at the Adeptus Mechanicus Vanguard here, and they are toughness 3. So based on our chart, as you can see again, we need 3s to wound here. Now, Gene Stealers will look at this card. They have a special rule that allows them to re-roll 1s to wound. So what that entails is we pick up all of our 1s and we'll get the other dice out of the way. Just, you want to be neat when you're doing this. We'll slide these off to the side. Oh, Gene Stealer wants to come with. And we will re-roll those. Again, same roll, looking for 3s or better. Much better, 1 miss out of that. Now this is our wound roll, just like you saw in the shooting phase. We will now compare the AP of these weapons to the armor save of the Adeptus Mechanicus. You can see that the AP on the Gene Stealers is AP -2. The Skitarii Vanguard have a 5+, while the AP on the Gene Stealers is -2. This would in turn turn the armor save to the Vanguard to a 7+, which is impossible to succeed on a D6 dice roll. However, the Vanguard do have a 6+ invulnerable save, which we can choose to roll instead of our non-existent armor save now. So the Vanguard will roll these and we're looking for 6s. We do roll a good chunk of 6s here. However, that is still plenty of wounds, 10 of them in fact. They are, again, we will reference the data sheet. They are 1 damage apiece. Skitarii Vanguard have 1 wound apiece, so therefore 10 Vanguard would die. There are only 5 of them to die, so the squad has been slain.
Now that our Gene Stealers have finished off fighting, they are eligible to make a consolidation move. A consolidation move is, again, up to 3 inches for each model, but there are a couple rules on how to do this. When a unit consolidates, there are 3 possible options. It can consolidate into engagement range of an enemy unit. If it cannot consolidate into engagement range of an enemy unit, it could consolidate into in range of an objective marker. If it could do both, then it has to end in the engagement range of an enemy unit. You can't choose to do the objective marker unless that's the only option. And third, if neither of those 2 things is possible, then they must stay still. In order to make the move, at least one model has to end up within the engagement range of an enemy unit after making this move. So you can see here with this little 3-inch tool that this Gene Stealer can wind up in engagement range of the Rust Stalkers over here. So to move the remaining units that way as well, they would each have 3 inches to move. If they can end in base-to-base contact, they must, and they must also end closer to the closest enemy unit. And in the case that you cannot end the consolidation move in engagement range of an enemy, you can see it here, they're too far away to make 3 inches, end them in engagement range. You can instead consolidate up to 3 inches and wind up in control of an objective. So you can see this little orange marker here is our objective, and this mat here would represent the range where you'd qualify being in control of that objective. And you can see here that they can move and wind up in range of this objective. So again, each model would make its 3 inches. If it can wind up in range, it must. You can see the first one could. You have another one over here, and then the rest will just get as close as possible. Again, they must end their move closer to the objective than they started. And then in the case where they are not able to end their move in engagement range of an enemy unit and also cannot end in control of an objective, then they are not eligible to consolidate and must stay still.
And there you have it, the fight phase and the charge phase all wrapped up. It is a little bit more complex when it comes to everything that happens in Warhammer 40k, but hopefully these steps narrowed it down for you guys and you have figured out how to play all of Warhammer 40k now, at least in the basics. We'll have plenty of videos coming. I know our next one is going to be on how terrain works in Warhammer 40k, another very important one. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you subscribers. Thank you members, most importantly. And we'll catch you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.